Hey guys, welcome to this video. My name is John Watts. I'm a consumer protection lawyer, and a lot of times people have asked me, so how did you get into doing consumer law? And sometimes they ask me that because they know that my background, when I started practicing law in 1995, I did personal injury, so wrongful death, class action cases, but again, more focused on personal injury. So maybe it's a truck wreck case or a car wreck case. I still do all those things. And some people say, well, how did you get into suing credit bureaus, suing debt collectors, companies like that? Well, really two experiences led me down this path. I mean, occasionally I'd have a client say, hey, I've got this false credit reporting, and so I'd sue the credit bureaus, but it wasn't something that I was really looking for or particularly interested in. It was just, okay, a client has this issue, so I handled the issue and then we'd move on. But what happened is I was probably about 5 days from closing on my first house. And so I'm in the apartment, boxes are packed, kids are running around. And I get a phone call from my mortgage broker. And he goes, we have a problem. And let me tell you this, you don't want to hear that from your mortgage broker. You don't want to hear that from your lawyer, your doctor, or your mortgage broker when you're about to move into a house. Okay, I'm like, what do you mean we have a problem? He goes, well, something's popped up on a credit report. And I'm like, well, what? Everything was fine. And of course, this is long before, we could go to annualcreditreport.com and all that sort of stuff. And so he told me what it was. And so I called the company. And I'll just tell you this, in my personal life, I never tell anybody I'm a lawyer. Okay. So, if I get into some dispute with somebody, I don't say, I'm a lawyer. I just think that's annoying. And I don't know why people do that. So I'm talking to this company and they just wouldn't fix it. I mean, they kind of admitted that it was wrong and they're sort of like, so what? What are you going to do about it? You told us you're closing on your house in a few days. And so finally I said, look, I never tell anybody this. I'm a lawyer. I really need you to fix this immediately. And they're like, no. And so I go, okay, let me explain this. I'm a plaintiff's lawyer. All I do is sue companies, okay? That's what I do, all right? I don't write wills. I don't write contract. I sue companies. You really need to fix it. Well, eventually they fixed it. And, I did some research on it and I thought, wow, they were really difficult when they know this is going to be like catastrophic results, right? If I don't close on this house and, my apartment lease is coming to an end and I've got down payment money, all that stuff. And then they found out I'm a lawyer and they still didn't want to fix it. I'm like, what do they do to people that, are working a normal job and, their whole life isn't spent suing companies that break the law? Like, what do they do to those folks? And so I started getting more interested in it and, asking my client, hey, are you having problems? And, oh yeah, I'm having all sorts of problems. And so, I started doing more and more cases. Well, then one of my kids had to go to Children's Hospital and there was an MRI involved. And so, I knew it was whatever it was, $250 copay. So I pay it. And then evidently, I don't remember it, but maybe I got a bill from the hospital and I thought $250 MRI. Hey, I paid that. And then I end up getting a collection call from this local collection agency. And they say, hey, you owe this money. I'm like, well, what is this? And they said, and at this point, I'm not suing debt collectors, okay? I'm still doing all personal injury, but then I'm also suing credit bureaus and companies doing false credit reporting. But I never looked at the FDCPA, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And so this debt collector says, well, it's for an MRI. And I said, well, I paid that. And they said, well, maybe there's two MRIs. That sounds weird, but I said, okay, let me call the hospital, and if I owe it, I'll pay it. And so, they say that's fine. So I call the hospital and say, yep, there were two MRIs, and, okay, so I pay it. Well, then this company puts it on my credit report. And so I call them back. I'm like, what are you doing? I mean, you called me. I realized there was a mistake. I immediately paid it. Why are you putting this on my credit report? And they were just very condescending, very arrogant. Yeah, well, we have the right to do that. We're going to do it. And I'm like, no, I don't think you did it right. Okay. And I don't know this in my mind. I don't know everything about the rules about debt collectors, but I do know credit reporting, and this is wrong what they're doing. And so again, I kind of break my rule. Twice I've told people in sort of, personal life where I go, hey, I'm a lawyer. So I tell them that, and finally, I think it gets through, even as arrogant and as crazy and frankly as stupid as this collection agency is. They finally got like, oh wait, maybe this is a problem. Like, we're going to get sued for this. And so they took it off my report. And again, it was just a realization where I'm like, why did I have to tell them I'm a lawyer? Why did I have to say, and I'm a lawyer that sues companies? Why did it take that to get their attention? Why didn't they go, you know what, we made a mistake. We're going to take this off your report. Like, well, that's just being a decent human being. And that's when it really dawned on me, like, these collection agencies are not decent human beings. Okay, now I'm sure there are some, but I'm saying by and large, they are not. And so I started looking at, okay, well, if I'm facing this, what are my clients facing? And then I found out, yeah, they're being harassed and false credit reporting and all this sort of stuff by debt collectors. And so that's when I started doing more of that. And then at that point, I was not defending anybody sued by debt buyers. And it wasn't such a big deal back then. And then probably 15, 16 years ago, had a client say, hey, I got sued by this company. And I never took out this debt. It's not my debt. And it turned out, so I guess this is actually 3 stories, kind of complete the picture here. This person says, it's not me. It may be my kid, but it's not me. And so I reach out to the collection law firm and say, hey, you sued the wrong person. And they're kind of like, we don't care. We're going to get a judgment against your person. I'm like, you sued the wrong guy. Okay, that's not very smart. Like, you really need to just back off of this now. They're like, no. So we go to trial. And then at trial, they kind of fold and say, well, okay, maybe we sued the wrong person here, and just doing some weird stuff. So I'm like, that's insane. Like, because the client called the collection firm before they ever called me, and they're like, hey, you sued the wrong person. And they're like, yeah, we don't care. Is your social security number like, 1, 2, 3, 4? And they're like, nope, that's not it. They're like, well, that's what we have. And then, my client's like, well, obviously you had the wrong person. They're like, no, we're not dropping the case. It's okay. So after the case was over, I sue that company. Well, of course, the collection lawyer kind of goes ballistic. What are you doing suing my client? I'm going to have to pay for this. I'm like, buddy, you should have backed off when you had the chance. And so anyway, we've eventually settled that. And so that's what kind of got me into being interested in these debt buyer lawsuits. I'm like, how horrible is this process that they can sue the wrong person and it doesn't even face them? Okay, like in my world, if I sue the wrong person for a car wreck, a truck wreck, a personal injury, I mean, first of all, they're like telling me, hey, I'm not the guy that was driving that. And then we investigate it and we, immediately fix it. Okay, we don't want to sue the wrong person. But what I realize is these debt buyers, they don't really care. It's just such a huge volume business. Like, so what? We filed 20,000 lawsuits last year in Alabama, and 20 of them were against the wrong person. Big deal. Well, it's a big deal to 20 people, okay? And I've had them even try to get judgments against the wrong person. Even when we tell them it's the wrong person, they're like, okay. They still try to get a judgment again. I'm just like, what are you doing? So those are the stories that kind of got me into what I do. And like I said, in my day job, I still do personal injury and wrongful death cases. But a lot of what we're doing now is suing the credit bureau, suing debt collectors, companies like that. So hope that you found that interesting, and I will be back with a more normal video tomorrow. Okay, have a good one. Bye-bye.